I just finished the book I was reading.
That's great, dear. Was that the book about the lawyer who was raped and was later called upon to testify for the defense when the rapist was falsely accused of murder?
No, this is about the lawyer who sheltered her abusive ex-husband from the mob when they thought he had snitched on them.
Oh, I see you've moved on to a completely different book. Well, I read books too.
That's nice, dear. What have you read recently?
The Hardy Boys, The Clue in the Embers.
That's a children's book. When did you read it?
I can't remember exactly.
Well, about when did you read it?
3rd grade or maybe 4th grade.
That's not exactly recent. What books have you read recently?
MSNBC.com.
That's not a book, that's a website.
MacRumors.com.
That's another website.
How about Anantech?
What's that?
It's a website where some guy reviews solid-state drives and computer cases.
Oh, not a book.
How about Robinson Crusoe? That's a book.
Yes, that's the book we are reading together out loud. I'm not sure. Well, okay, we can count it. Do you want to do some reading from it now?
Sure. I've got it right here. Let's see, where were we? Oh, here's where we left off. With these reflections I worked my mind up, not only to a resignation to the will of God in the present disposition of my circumstances, but even to a sincere thankfulness for my condition, and that I, who was yet a living man, ought not to complain, seeing I had not the due punishment of my sins, that I enjoyed so many mercies which I had no reason to have expected in that place, that I ought never more to repine at my condition, but to rejoice, and to give daily thanks for that daily bread, which nothing but a crowd of wonders could have brought, that I ought to consider I had been fed even by a miracle, even as great as that of feeding Elijah by ravens, nay, by a long series of miracles, and that I could hardly have named a place in the uninhabitable part of the world where I could have been cast more to my advantage, a place where, as I had no society, which was my affliction on one hand, so I found no ravenous beasts, no furious wolves or tigers, to threaten my life, no venomous creatures, or poisons, which I might feed on to my hurt, no savages to murder and devour me.
Boring. Boring.
And that was just one sentence.
One sentence? Where did this guy learn to write, anyway?
Well, Defoe was writing this a long time ago.
Yeah, but it sucks by today's standards. I don't see why anyone reads that stuff anymore.
Well, it could use some modernizing.
Maybe you're just not reading it right. Can I take a crack at it?
Sure.
Okay, here's a sentence. And this I must observe, with grief, too, that the discomposure of my mind had great impression also upon the religious part of my thoughts. For the dread and terror of falling into the hands of savages and cannibals lay so upon my spirits, that I seldom found myself in a due temper for application to my Maker. At least, not with the sedate calmness and resignation of soul which I was wont to do. I rather prayed to God as under great affliction and pressure of mind, surrounded with danger, and in expectation every night of being murdered and devoured before morning. And I must testify, from my experience, that a temper of peace, thankfulness, love, and affection, is much the more proper frame for prayer than that of terror and discomposure, and that under the dread of mischief impending, a man is no more fit for a comforting performance of the duty of praying to God than he is for a repentance on a sick bed. For these discomposures affect the mind, as the others do the body, and the discomposure of the mind must necessarily be as great a disability as that of the body, and much greater. Praying to God being properly an act of the mind, not of the body.
You know, MSNBC.com isn't sounding too bad right now, is it, dear?